the time to seize the day.
Now is the time to seize the day.
Send out the call and join the fray.
Send out the call and join the fray.
Dogs will be riding if we're united. Let us seize the day.
Welcome to another episode of Buc'In the News. This edition is for December 9th. We are heading in to play the Lions at home, finally back off a 3-game streak. I am Brent Allen, your host. With me, as always, Rendax, my co-host, and Ren. We started with some VeggieTales Sesame Street music today, buddy.
I was going to ask you that, because normally when you play the intro music, I can't hear it. About 1 in 5 times I hear it. Tonight I heard it, so my first question was going to be, did you play the Newsies, or did you play what was recommended to us by a listener? But I got my answer.
Yes, no, we're playing the new. That's our theme song, and until honestly you or I say, "Hey, no more," I'm probably going to stick with it. But I tell you, for the sake of Chris, who took the time to send us in a song, I will play that song when we're done with today's show. And listeners out there, if you have a preference, let us know. You can email me. You can tweet me. You can let me know. I may not listen to you, but I might.
Leave it a review on iTunes.
Leave it a review. Yeah, do that. Just keep it 5 stars. But anyway, guys, this is the Buc'In the News show. This is typically where I'd say this is show number 3 for this week. But actually, Ren, this is, it might be show number 3, but this is podcast number 4 that got released this week. We had a little 2-parter for our final thought show. I kind of like how that one went. It kept each one at a manageable length, but it allowed us to dive into each one respectively. And, made for better listening, I think, throughout the week, at least for me, it did.
Yeah, me too. I'd be interested to see how that does. Because people that do listen to us know that it would just be a viewer interaction. I'm wondering if the numbers stayed the same or dropped a bit, because if you didn't send in an email or a tweet or a review, then there might not be something you want to listen to.
But I would say there's always something they want to listen to, because the email section, yes, it's the core of it is thoughts on the game by our fellow fans. But you and I get to bounce off a whole lot of stuff with that, and a lot of times we cover things that we never really got to in our main segment. So
that's true.
Yeah,
that's
so
true.
I'd always recommend people listen to that. Because I want people listening to our content. But
I'm not telling anyone not to listen.
Right. But yeah, I certainly understand what you mean. So hey, listen, listeners, I'll throw this one back out there to you. Let us know. We are definitely open to feedback. We are not shy about changing up things. Should we switch that? Should we split that into 2 shows on a more permanent basis, or you want us to smush them back together? Let us know. Shoot us an email to thepewtercast@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter @thepewtercast or on facebook.com/thepewtercast. But enough of all that housekeeping stuff. This is Buc'In the News. This is the show where Ren and I get to sit back. We get to take a look at all the news, the headlines, the transactions, the injury reports, all that stuff that when we're talking about the game specifically, we don't really get a chance to talk about a lot of this, at least not in depth. This is the time where we get to do that. We always do it here at the end of the week so we can kind of get the news in scope. We can see the whole thing, and sometimes, it changes from day to day. So we'll definitely get there to that. Ren, why don't we start off with transactions this week?
Yeah, let's do it.
All
it should
right.
be short.
It should be fairly short. This one actually goes back all the way to last Saturday, the last time we released a Buc'In the News show. But the Buccaneers, right after, or actually the same day we released this, they waived linebacker Cameron Lynch, and they signed to the active roster offensive lineman Michael Liedtke. Of course, we now know that it was that Saturday morning that Joe Hawley came down sick. So that certainly explains the signing of Michael Liedtke and the waiving of Cameron Lynch. Really sorry to see him go. I thought he had a good run on Hard Knocks. It was kind of interesting to follow his story. It's been fun to see him pop up here and there throughout the season. But you got to make room for him somewhere, and linebacker is not a spot where we're hurting right now.
No, yeah, I liked him too. But he, good for him as far as who he got picked up. He got picked up by the Rams.
Sure.
He was actually on Hard Knocks, and Jeff Fisher, whatever, said that he was one of the harder guys to cut. They really wanted to keep him. They just couldn't find a spot for him on the Rams. So he's back with the Rams, and he's with a team that's contending for the playoffs. So I'm sure he's not totally bummed.
Right. Well, with the open spot now on the practice squad, since they promoted Michael Liedtke, the Buccaneers signed back Sterling Bailey. They also released a practice squad signee from last week, Dare Ogunbowale. They released him, so he's gone. We don't have to worry about his name anymore. And they re-signed, actually, I should say, Cody Riggs, who's a cornerback, back to this practice squad. I guess kind of filling that missing secondary piece on a defensive spot as well. So no big major transactions, mostly a lot of practice squad stuff. But that's really it for the transactions for this week, Ren.
I was a little sad to see Dare Ogunbowale leave. I talked about him last week as possibly being a replacement for Charles Sims, whatever happens to him. And once again, even though he's not on the team, I would not be surprised to see him once the season's over the summer to be signed as a futures contract. Right. Kind of like they did like Blake Sims and some of those
futures
other
contracts.
guys.
Futures contracts, you don't have to wait till the summer. They could start signing those in like January. So we could see that sooner rather than later.
By summer, for me as a Bucs fan, summer starts like January 1st because
summer starts in the coldest month of the year. No, I get it. I get what you're saying. I certainly do. So yeah, they'll sign him then. I don't want to say they will. It will be interesting to see if they sign him then. And we still have 4 weeks left of the season. 3 weeks actually now, I guess. Four games, 3 weeks. However that works. I don't know. Math, it's hard. But what was I saying with that? Like practice squad. We see people get released and re-signed like Cody Riggs all the time. So, we certainly could see him back here with the Bucs before the season ends as well.
Sterling Bailey too. He's a re-sign.
He is. I was thinking that we knew that name, and yeah, I think that's right. So, but again, bunch of practice squad guys. They'll come and go. We'll see them when they get to the active roster. So that's all I have there. Headlines. Let's move into headlines and spend some time. I've got quite a few. Some of them are a little more fun and lighthearted. Some of them are nothing is I think deep or earth shaking this week as far as headlines.
No, but I think there's a lot more to talk about that happened this week at One Buck than there was last week.
I would agree.
And I have a feeling we talked a little bit before we started recording. I have a feeling we're going to disagree a lot during this part.
Well, okay, that works for me. It just makes for better radio, as they say. Let's hear it. Where should we start? Why don't we kind of go? Let's go to some of the stuff that I think kind of came out towards the beginning of the week. A lot of you guys out there know by now. If not, where have you been? The New York Giants released their head coach and GM, and kind of the front-runner name that has been touted out there with a lot of people is Mike Smith, our current defensive coordinator, who apparently, I guess he interviewed for that job a couple of years ago. He didn't get it, but he's coming out now as kind of the lead front-runner, at least as of right now. Ren, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's a whole lot of nothing.
Yep.
It's going to end up being a whole lot of nothing. One reason, and Roy Cummings flat out asked him, like, can you go? Is your contract ironclad? Like, are you allowed to talk to other teams? Things like that, because we've all speculated that the Glazers backed up the dump truck and full of money and put it on his front lawn. And when Mike Smith did sign his extension, he said that he will be the defensive coordinator for the next 2 years. Pretty much saying that he's not going to be looking for another job, or it could mean he's not allowed to look for another job.
Right.
Like they said, Mike Smith interviewed there. I think people liked him. I think Giants Nation liked him. And then when McAdoo got the job, now he's fired. You just sort of go back, since it was so recent. Mm-hmm. Well, who was the guy that almost got it? And Mike Smith. Yeah. So I think that's just why his name's being thrown around a lot up there. But if he doesn't get fired,
Right.
which I'm not saying he should. I'm just saying it should be seriously looked at. If he doesn't get fired, I think he'll be with the Bucs next year. He won't be leaving on his own accord. Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. So chalk one up in the we agree category. I don't buy it. This is pure speculation. This is we see it every summer or every year. Whenever coaches let teams go, that there's this coach and there's this coach and there's this coach, and my sources tell me that they're really close to this guy or they've already got it sealed up, and then it winds up not even being that guy. So I think this is
about
just
Gruden too. Shocker.
Yeah, there you go. Which, by the way, not really a headline. It's a headline that's only mildly related to us. He said, I think it was actually earlier today, he said, I can't control coaching speculation. Like, that was his answer. Somebody asked him about all that. Obviously, there's a lot of speculation about him potentially coming to the Bucs. There's obviously speculation of him going to everywhere.
That story that we should talk about.
Is there? Okay. Well, let's get there. We'll get there in just a little bit. But
sure.
Yeah, Mike Smith, listen, the only thing that I could say is if the Bucs and Koetter are looking for a graceful way to get out of the whole Mike Smith thing, this could be their answer. But I just, when Smith signs a contract up there, I think that's when I'll believe it. Or if we actually see him go for an interview. If the Bucs say that he can interview and he can go up there, we'll see. But I don't think there's a whole lot in this story, to be honest with you.
Yeah, me neither. And if he does go, I can't really say I wouldn't be all torn up like I would have been last offseason.
Right.
Like I would have been like, man, we really need to keep him. Now we got to start over, blah, blah, blah. But, after this year, even if they rattle off, 4 wins in a row and it's really and the defense is, sort of carries him to these 4 wins, I still would be like, he still has to be looked at, to be upgraded because besides that 5-game winning streak last year, his defense has been terrible.
Right.
It's been terrible for 3/4 of the time he's here. So
I can now see that's a spot where I don't want to say that I full on disagree with you, like because I'm kind of there. I'm just not ready to say that I agree just yet.
Yeah, I hear you. You're leaning that way, but you're not going to put it out. Not going to make it official yet.
Yeah. Like I still lean towards, and I think it might be I don't know, just kind of that. I kind of want to stay with the same deal because I think this year is going to turn out to be an outlier. Like if we go on and we keep Koetter and things like that. I feel like this could just be an outlier of a year, just be a weird year for all of them. But I get what you're saying when you're saying 3/4 of the time Mike Smith has been here, it's been crap, But Mike Smith, here's what I would say with that: if the Bucs do decide to move on from Mike Smith and bring in somebody else, what I would like to see is, I'll use the word you used just a second ago, an actual upgrade. Like, I don't want to be like, oh, Mike Smith is horrible, let's get him out of here, and then let's just put somebody in, or let's just go find the next guy that we can. Like, I would like for them to actually have somebody that they think is better than Mike Smith lined up, and they're moving forward to that person.
Right. You don't want to get rid of him without a plan in place already.
Exactly. And by the way, Ren, I don't think either you or I are calling for Koetter to be fired or to be let go.
No.
Nor do we
I'm
want
not calling
to,
for Mike Smith either.
Yeah. Nor do we want to see that happen.
No.
Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know.
I don't want Koetter fired for sure. I don't want Koetter.
Right now I'm talking about Koetter. If the Buccaneers were to let Koetter go, the same rule applies to me. I want them moving on to somebody who is an upgrade, not, throwing up our hands in frustration. He's not the guy. Let's just get rid of him and then figure out from there.
Right. Like what they did with Dungy.
Right. And like they did, honestly, with Shiano and with Raheem and with, that's what, when they got rid of Lovey, they knew who they were going to, and they felt like it was an upgrade. They felt like it was the right next step. And if they were wrong on that, fine, so be it. I think they would be foolish to move on right now. At this point, at week number, 14 in the season, I feel like that would still be the wrong move if they were to move on. But if they were, I want them to have a plan in place with somebody who they think is actually going to be who's going to be an upgrade, not just the next guy. So anyway.
Yeah, it's never a good idea to jump out of the airplane then start looking for a parachute.
Sure.
Sure.
I agree. Yeah. Don't do that. Or grab the guy who has a parachute.
And stab him in the neck and take it.
Right.
What? Sorry.
Yeah, while you're mid-fall. You had mentioned, you said there were some things in that report about Gruden that you wanted to get to. So why don't we jump over to there? And I didn't fully read everything. I just I saw the headline and I skimmed over it just a little bit. Right. So why don't you take us there and what do you want to talk about with it?
Yeah, well, John Gruden was out at McDill wearing his, fired football coaches association stuff and sort of coaching up McDill's football team. I didn't know they had one. I'm sure, it's rec, obviously. But, once again, John Gruden got in front of the local cameras a couple weeks before he's going to be inducted to the Ring of Honor. Mm-hmm. And what I found interesting was the interviews after that. There was a nice moment where he said, it's going to be it's going to be very emotional for him because a lot of people don't remember that he grew up with the Buccaneers. His dad worked with the Buccaneers, so he was a ball boy, and he talked about Jimmy Giles and James Wilder. Uh-huh. They drafted Bo Jackson when he was hanging around with the team, Steve Young. So he does have a lot more history just besides that Super Bowl run. But what I found interesting, he said something that the Buccaneers are 7 to 9 plays from being 8-4. It's like if you look at it, like they're really about 7-9 plays of being 8-4. And I was like, he is keeping a watch on that team. It's sure. Like. It's back like at Hard Knocks when Koetter couldn't get him out of the building.
Right.
Right. And he comes on TV and he's like, well, a few plays from 8-4. It's like, how closely is he watching this team? So he's definitely not trying to douse water on the flames of Gruden to Tampa in 2018. Uh-huh. That's for sure. And he's always been like that. He didn't even say no to his Sean McDonough on Monday Night Football asked him, you're linked to they asked me about the New York Giants job, and he's like, what's you take the over under, or what's the chances? It was over under, and Gruden said, well, if they keep Eli, then I'll take the over. So right. That's not saying I'm not interested in that job. It's saying, hey, Giants, if you're looking, if you're thinking about me possibly contacting me for the open candidacy head coach, Eli Manning has to be included. And he just does stuff like that. He could come out and say, I'm not interested in the Buccaneers job. Even if he's lying, he could say it, but he doesn't.
Right. So
it's just John Gruden being John Gruden. But I just thought that was really telling about, how I know he watches a lot of film, but it just felt like to me like he's sort of just, you ever seen those memes with like the cat's like eyes just peering like above like a shelf or something, and it's like soon.
Right.
I just feel like he's like peeking around the corner and he's just like biding his time back there, twisting his mustache.
Right. And as it is right now, the thing he does keep saying is, I have a job. The Monday night gig, right? He's like, I've got something. I'm good with this, but there's always that thing over there, which is cool too. And listen, we'll find out what happens, with Gruden, particularly as it relates to Tampa Bay, probably in about 4 weeks, whether it's all smoke and mirrors or whether there's actually any kind of meat to it,
Agreed.
But as of right now, as of the date of this recording, there is no available job for John Gruden in Tampa Bay. Unless there's something behind the scenes that we don't know about. So anyway, moving on from that, that's all very interesting. Let's see here.
I think they're hiring a new Captain Fear.
I saw the job posting on their little job board.
Yeah, so there is a job if he wants it.
They could. That'd be interesting. Do you think Koetter could resist ripping off the head of the Captain Fear thing and not showing people who it is that's underneath that thing?
Oh, everybody
If it
would
was
know
him.
it was Gruden. The real question is, do you think Captain Fear, when Gruden's inside it, could control himself to not running out on the field and yelling at the refs and trying to call plays, like ripping the headset off Dirk Koetter in the middle of the game?
Like Sean Payton did in the game last
spider,
night.
Y banana, zebra, or whatever the hell whatever that famous saying is. 2-eye banana, spider. I'm messing it up, and everyone's mad at me now. I can tell. I can just feel it. I'll get some tweets telling me how to say it, I'm sure.
Well, you can do that at Ren_Daxt. That's REN _
They know who I am.
DAXT. All right. Let's see here. Other things that came out this week. Well, we're talking about head coaches. Let's talk about Dirk for a little bit. I watched it. I saw it happen. Not live, just in video form. Dirk Koetter got a little angsty once again with the media, like ratcheted it up a whole nother level this week.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was better prepared, I would actually have the audio of it queued up. But it was a rather long clip. If you haven't seen it, go back to it. I think it was Wednesday's press conference from this past week. Rick Stroud had asked him the question about whether or not Doug Martin is going to return if he clears the protocol. Maybe this was Tuesday's. If Doug Martin clears the protocol, is he going to return as the starter, or is he going to stick with Peyton Barber? And Dirk didn't really appreciate the question very much. And from there it kind of spun into some other stuff. And what it ended was it ended in the press conference with them kind of saying, "Okay, any more?" And as Dirk walks off, he goes, "Gee, this was fun," or he said something like under his breath, like "Thanks a lot, guys," or
right.
something very, very snippy. So yeah, Dirk's getting a little angsty here with the media, and I got to tell you, Ren, for me personally, I kind of get it from both sides.
I don't.
You don't? So Mark Cook, he tweeted out, he was actually the first one who said something about it, publicly, at least that I saw. And is actually what got me to go back and make sure that I watched that particular one, because sometimes I miss some of the press conferences. But, he had said it and kind of, and he said these words. He's like, "Listen, as long as you're losing, these are the questions you get. You might not like them, but these are the types of questions you get from the media side." And it's the media's job. They don't let him off easy. If they ask him a question and they feel like he's danced or skirted around it or he wasn't clear, they ask it again, and they usually ask it in a different way. You hold their feet to the fire, right? Like that's part of the job of a journalist, part of the job of media. You ask it. That's what they do, right? And they're there to ask questions and get answers from the head coach. It's a little bit of a public accountability session, for the head coach. So I get the media asking those questions and continuing to ask those questions. From Koetter's standpoint, I get that, at least from his perspective, he doesn't really think that it matters what he says. The guys in the media, and even it probably would extend some to us, Ren, and the public at large, people are going to write and say what they want to write and say. It doesn't matter what he says. So, like, there's a little bit of he might have come to a spot where he doesn't really feel like these press conferences are worth it. If that makes sense? Because he thinks that people are just going to say and do whatever they really want. Doesn't matter what they're just looking for him to corroborate, whatever narrative they're trying to spin. The other thing too is he's not trying to give away his game plans. So ask your question, but I'm not going to tell you the answer. Or they ask him questions that he doesn't want to comment on, and he kind of dances around. And he's smart enough to know when they turn around and ask him the same question multiple times in different ways. So it's on the one hand, it's the media's job, but it's really annoying to him, and he's just as smart as they are, and he can see what they're doing. But as Cook said, and I agree with Cook, listen, when you're losing, these are the kind of questions you get. But either way, at the end of the day, I think Koetter needs to be more professional. And, I understand his frustration, but I think what he did was unprofessional. I'm not giving him a pass for it. I'm just saying I kind of understand it. So I do. I see it from both sides. How about you? Whoa.
Wrong. in my opinion. Yeah, I don't think Cook's tweet was accurate about when you're losing, these are the type of questions you get, because what Dirk Koetter got, and everybody knew it was coming, when Peyton Barber ran for 100 yards behind a makeshift offensive line, the questions were coming. Does he get more playing time? Is Doug Martin done? Was it more of Peyton Barber or the offensive line or Green Bay? Would Doug, if Doug was back there, would he have ran for just as many or more? And he got them after the game Sunday. He got them Monday. He got them Wednesday. He got them Thursday. And he just had enough of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because when he was talking to Rick Stroud about you're going to write whatever you want to write, because it was obvious Stroud was writing a piece on that very subject. Like either Doug Martin is time to go, or you shouldn't give up on Doug Martin, or Barber needs more care. Whatever he was doing, he was asking the question to get a quote for his piece. That's what he was doing. Dirk Koetter called him out on it and said, it doesn't matter what I say, just write whatever you're going to write, because this has now been 3/4 because I think it happened Thursday is when he got snippy and walked off. So, it took those questions that he got all week long in 4 press conferences. And then you see people on Twitter and social media talk about, well, Monken doesn't do that. Well, Monken only has to get stupid questions once a week.
Right.
He doesn't have to see the media 5 times a week. The only days Dirk doesn't talk to the media is Saturday and Tuesday.
Right.
He's got a press conference every day besides that. And people are talking about how, it looks like the pressure is getting to Dirk Koetter. I think Dirk Koetter would act the same way if we were 4-8 or 8-4.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And if I think we were 8-4, I don't think really there would be a lot of questions about Barber or Martin. It was a good fill-in game, even if Martin had the same exact numbers.
Mm-hmm.
If Martin did the same exact thing and the Bucs were 8-4 instead of 4-8, the questions wouldn't be. It'd be about, hey, looks like I got a jewel in the rough in Barber there. Are you going to try to get him on the field more? Like it was week 1, week 2. Remember those questions? When Martin was out, it was all, hey, when are you going to Peyton on the Barber? And they kept saying, Peyton Barber cannot pass protect. Let's just get that straight. Okay? Yes, he had a very good game. Do I think he's earned more playing time than Jaquez Rodgers? Yeah. Do I think he's earned more playing time than Doug Martin? No. Why? Because he can't pass protect. That's why. He can't do it. So I don't feel that Dirk Koetter is being mean or unprofessional. There are certain things you don't do with Dirk Koetter, and he's going to get snippy with you. 1, ask about injuries. 2, ask him to comment on something that somebody else said. And 3, keep repeating the same questions. Those 3 things, the guys in the media room call it cuttered. You got cuttered. You do those 3 things, you're going to get cuttered. And they all know it. So, you get, your panties in a wad because Dirk Koetter, gives you curt answers and walks up and hey, great job, guys, blah. It's like an ego blow. It's like, oh, you don't think I'm doing a good job? Well, I'll tweet out that, I think you're unprofessional. Oh, who cares? Dirk Koetter owes nothing to the media. And we've actually heard Roy Cummings say this, and I've heard Mark Cook say, I can't say if he was on with us at another time or not, but the times that they sort of do get snippied with, if they get quote unquote, they get cuttered, they talk about how, in retrospect, I should have phrased the question better.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a difference between rephrasing a question and then backing the person into a corner where they have to answer your question. So, all right, here I go. You're going to be Mike Smith, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Mike Smith, your defense gives up 14 or 15 points at home and only 30 points on the road. Can you give us some reasons for that?
Well, they all go out drinking when they're on the road the night before. What can I do about it? I don't know.
Okay, so you're not going to be realistic. You're not going to play. Okay.
I don't know. I mean, no. What does Mike Smith say? He says,
complimentary pass rush.
Okay, here you go. Yeah, all that stuff.
You know what he says. He says it every week. But you have to say something so I can back you in the corner.
Okay. Well, when the defensive line doesn't get the pass rush, it doesn't allow the guys in the cornerback to be able to cover their guys, very well. If they're going to let if the guys up front are going to let the quarterback have 10 seconds, of course these guys back here are going to get open. But these guys in the back, if they can't cover their guys, and shut down the options, it's they're going to have to make the quarterback throw and get him out there. So, for whatever reason, they're not playing complementary defense.
Okay, but they are playing complementary defense. They're playing complementary defense at home. You can tell it's almost a 15-point difference. You've been doing this for 28 years. You're a 2-time NFL Coach of the Year. If you can't get the pass rush, it can't be as simple as just the location. It can't be a point on the map, either at Tampa Bay or Green Bay or at Atlanta or at the Cardinals. What's the biggest factor that goes into that 15-point spread on the road?
I see what you're saying, and
it's the same exact question.
Yeah.
But you take what he tells you, and you eliminate the stuff that he's going to say to you, like, "Hey, Coach Koetter, does Peyton Barber earn some more practice time?" Well, we'll have to see. Doug's in concussion protocol right now, and we like Peyton a lot, and he's going to get out there. And then you go, well, it's the first time you've rushed for 100 yards and how many, almost a calendar year. Would you say with this play on Sunday he's stepped in front of Jacquizz Rodgers as far as amount of touches, even when Doug comes back? Like, you take away all his things, his excuses that he just said, not excuses, but all the things he just said, and you go, yes, 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 but. And they don't do that. They just go, has Peyton Barber more playing time? No, and then Koetter gives his answer. Well, he did just rush for 165 yards from scrimmage, 101 yards in rush for 101 yards, first time in a year that it's been done. Don't you think he should earn more playing time? Or Doug Martin hasn't rushed for 100 yards in 16 months. Yeah. The first time Barber gets a full look, he gets at it. Don't you think there's a difference between just rephrasing the question and making the person answer it? Right.
So, the way you put it there, like, on the one hand, if I'm Koetter, right, and this is where I say it, like, I kind of see it from both sides. I really do. But if I'm Koetter and I'm answering that question, like, there's a piece of me that's sitting here going, are you in a backhanded way trying to tell me how to coach? Like, do you think I don't see these things? Maybe, just maybe, and this is the internal dialogue.
The head coach got the job.
But what I'm saying is maybe this is the internal dialogue of Coach Koetter of going, yes, I see all of that, and there are other things that you don't see, and you've got this thing where you're trying to promote and get, let's take this example. You're trying to get Doug Martin out of this team. That's already a foregone conclusion for you, but I'm looking at this from a different standpoint, and I see more than you, and I know more than you, and I have more information than you do. And by the way, I don't want to tell Detroit who I'm starting until I absolutely have to. So I'm not going to answer this question.
With that. When Greg Allman asked him, it's like, do you have something in your mind about how, the plays are going to be broken up? And he's like, yeah, I do. And you'll find out 1:00 on Sunday.
Right. By the way, I like that answer personally. So,
and nobody had a problem with that. Yeah. What they had a problem with was him getting snippy with him because they kept asking the same question for 4 days and then walking off and being like, basically, like you said, like, you guys suck.
Yeah, yeah,
and now they got their feelings hurt. It's like, well,
now
I think it would do a better job.
You
not
mean
that I'm saying that like I'm better than them, or
you mean the media?
They don't know
you say doing. The media needs to do a better job.
Better job of molding their questions.
Sure.
If you're going to ask the same one again, you have to take away some of his outs. That's what the first question's for.
Right.
If you don't get what you want from the first question, the follow-up question, you got to take away his outs that he just gave you and hit another question, not just rephrase the first question.
Mm-hmm. But at the same, and here's the other thing, and I'm going to agree with you on this point. if you know that there are like these 3 rules with Koetter in a press conference of don't ask me about questions that something somebody else said, don't ask me about things that reveal my game plans, and don't ask me, I forget what the third one was.
It's don't ask about injuries. Don't ask him to comment on something that somebody else said, and don't repeat questions.
Great. Like if I'm in that room personally, and this may be where I'm not a journalist, and this may be where, that's not my role. Like I tend to respect those kinds of things.
Well, you should, because you're not going to get what you want if you don't.
Right. And this, Ren, you and I have said several times this year that this is why we'd like media credentials, because I think you and I would ask different types of questions. And I have a ton of respect for just about every single person in that media room.
And I do too. I didn't want to come off saying like they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Exactly. I really have a ton of respect for those guys in there, and girls. But I think there is you and I coming at this, particularly from a fan perspective, from the perspective that we do on a podcast, we would actually ask different questions. Because when you listen to Koetter answer questions on his radio show, he doesn't have the same, he's answering questions from fans, and a lot of them are similar questions to what he kind of gets from the media sometimes.
Right.
He doesn't have that same snippiness with them. And I'm not saying that he wouldn't have a snippiness with us because we're fans, because we would be included in the other group if we did get those kind of credentials. But, I feel like that we could bring a different flair and flavor to those press conferences,
and it's because we're not bogged down by an article. Like a lot of those, when those questions get repeated, they already have an idea of what they're going to write. They have the piece they want to write, and they're looking for quotes. That's how it works.
Right.
Now, when things come out organically, like maybe something controversial, somebody said in the locker room, and that Joe Buc'In will do a piece on it, and Peter Report will do a piece on it, Greg Allman will do a piece on it, like, hey, like what this guy said. That's like an organic piece. But you have certain articles you have to write by certain days. So, you're probably, say you got something to do Wednesday at 7 p.m. You're probably looking at what you're going to write Monday.
Sure.
And you're going to sniff around Monday and Wednesday looking for quotes to fit that. But when you're just sort of there and everything's organic, you can you care about the questions like, where did you learn your offense? Is it more, what was that question like? Is it more numbers based or word based? Your offense.
Sure.
If any of those guys in the media room aren't writing about that, they're never going to ask that question because they don't care, because they're not writing about it.
And I mean, you even bring that down to something specific here. Hey, coach, in the game this last week, you got into a situation where it was 3rd and 20, and you wound up handing the ball off to Sims. Was that the actual play call, or was that a check down, or it
was 2nd and 20, but yeah,
you know what I mean. But still, there's just more. I think there becomes more questions like that of, and by the way, for anybody who's listening out here to what Ren said of, they have their articles that they're writing and they're looking for quotes. That is exactly what you and I have been told by people in the media that we've had a chance to talk with, of how their life works. Like that, you're not making that up. That is actually what and how they have told us that their job works. So,
right. And not all the time,
right.
There's lots of times into there where they're asking questions because they really want to know. And then they can write a story off of that. But a lot of times, the press conferences are there for the media guys to get quotes. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just, that's just the nature of the beast. That's just the way it is. So you're going to get repeat questions. And if you get repeat questions and you ask it to Dirk Koetter, you're going to get cuttered. And that's it. Like, shut your mouths and move on.
Right.
Write your article.
So it sounds like because I think you and I actually might be more lined up on this than you might think. I think the only spot where we might be a little bit disagreeing on is I think even in the face of all that Koetter still needs to be more professional about it. And you're kind of like, nah, screw it. If they're going to ask stupid questions, he gets to be frustrated. Is that fair? Is that what I'm hearing? That might be a little bit more where the disparage is between the two of us.
Yeah. I don't really think, I don't know where this, everybody wants to be respected at their job, but especially nowadays, what's happened with social media and media outlets, especially like in the past 5 years, probably closer to 2-3 years, how now, like, you're not held liable as a media member because anybody can, blogs, podcasts,
Sure.
You can make your own .com up and, and be, hey, whatever you can do. And you want to write stories about whatever your topic is. There's no repercussions for being absolutely wrong or just pushing an agenda. You can have the name news in your, on your blog spot or on your .com, but it's not, a lot of times it's not. I would say 95% of the stuff out there, it's just not news. It's just people's ideas and they want to push, and they think this is what's right and what should be reported. So this sort of, the press doesn't have, I guess, the respectability in the eyes of, and not just America, it's all around the world, that it used to. So now when I hear these people get their feelings hurt because someone was rude to them, then, bro, you write articles.
That's your line of work.
Like,
yeah.
You're not White House correspondent. You're not the press secretary for the U.S. Embassy in China. Like, calm down.
All right. Well, yeah. I get what. Yeah, at least I think just our disagreement might be on how Koetter should respond to that, even in the face of that. So, but yeah. Why don't we move on? Speaking of this whole thing with Rick Stroud and asking about Doug Martin, Rick Stroud had a tweet earlier today. Somebody was asking if there was any clarity at the running back position, and Stroud said, and I quote, he said, Bucs are expected to start running back Doug Martin in his return from concussion versus the Lions. The head coach doesn't believe in players losing their role as a result of injury. I have some problems with this. At least I think I have some problems with this. Ren, I'll throw it to you first, though. What do you think about this?
I don't think so, because he was answering
You don't
a
think
question.
so? What? Hold on just a sec.
Somebody at him at Twitter was like, hey, what did you hear about the Doug Martin situation? And Dirk Koetter has gone on record that normally, players don't lose their starting jobs due to injury, which is exactly what this is. Doug Martin had a concussion. Peyton Barber went in there, had a good game. Doug Martin cleared concussion protocol. Now Doug Martin is back at the starter. And that's just what he said. He said, in his tweet saying that, it's usually Dirk Koetter, and he said this before, is that the starters don't lose to injury. So,
right.
I mean, I think you feel that Doug Martin's not going to start. I strongly feel that Doug Martin's going to start. So I guess we can talk about that.
I could see it going either way. I'm a little 50-50. I really
Doug Martin
am.
Starting.
But Doug Martin
I'll bet you
start.
Pick something.
Do what?
Pick something. Doug Martin starting. First, we have to decide what does starting mean.
First offensive snap. He's the guy who's lining up behind. First offensive snap that has a running back in. That would be the starter role for here.
Okay, I agree. Now, because if you watch Thursday night's game, the Saints Falcons, Mark Ingram started the game. First play, he got a handoff, ran it, and then he went to the bench, and Kamara was in for like the whole rest of the drive, which ended in a field goal.
Right.
So, I mean, Kamara got all the touches, gained all the yards, but Mark Ingram started. So we can have that conversation about how do you think the I guess snaps are going to be broken up between the two. But I'm saying, like, just like you said, Bucs get the ball, 1st and 10. They're not 5 wide, obviously. Doug Martin starts.
I would lean probably 90% to that. And, I think that there's a small possibility that they could bring in Peyton. Yes, the Bucs are still trying to win games. They're also, I think, in a spot, and I think we're seeing this with some of the other roster moves that they've made, and a lot of it has to do with injuries. I do think that they are trying to give some of their guys a little deeper in the roster, a little more extended look.
Right, like Anthony Auclair.
Like Bobo Wilson. And, a couple of these other guys. So, there's a piece of me that says, hey, listen, and here's the deal. Maybe Doug gets in there, he runs the first series, and then they go over to Peyton for the next series. And, if Peyton's running really well, then they stay with him. I don't know. And I guess technically that would mean Martin returned as the starter to the lineup. And that probably the bigger question, Ren, and I think you bring up a really good point there. The better question is less who's starting and who gets the bulk of the carries.
Right.
How are they going to split that up? Now, the other side of that, and I do kind of agree with Koetter on this, is look, Doug Martin is our number 1 running back. Don't take the whole thing into context. Yes, Peyton Barber had a really good game. He had one game, running the ball. One good game.
Terrible game in pass protection.
Yes. And again, this is where I sit back and I go, somebody's asking Dirk Koetter a question based on this particular reasoning, and Dirk's sitting back here going, I've got all these other things that I'm looking at in regards to this position, and you're picking this one little thing to focus on. And so I'm going to make the decision based on my entire depth of knowledge of this whole deal, not based on this one little thing that you guys keep, harping on. So, we'll see. We'll see. But that said, my point to this whole thing is Koetter has not said that Martin is going to line up as the starter. He's not said that Peyton. He's not said that he's not. He's left it out there, and Koetter says, "Well, we'll see you on Sunday at 1." So, Stroud is reporting fact in that the head coach doesn't believe in players losing their role to result of injury. However, in his tweet that somebody asked him about it, where he said Bucs are expected to start running back Doug Martin, the question I would have back for Rick is, and I did, because actually I tweeted him back, I said, is this something you have officially heard from somebody, or is this you just drawing on tendencies that the Buccaneers, in particular Dirk Koetter, have had in recent history? Where are you drawing that conclusion to be able to say that out there? That'd be the question I would have for him on that.
Did he answer you?
No, he didn't.
Yeah, shocker.
So, but anyway, all right. So moving off of that, let's stick with some of the guys in the media. Trevor Sikkema, our good friend Trevor from over at PewterReport.com. In his cover 3 this week, he says that Kendall Beckwith is being groomed as another LaVonte David. I found this particularly interesting since at the beginning of the year, I want to say this was on the Ira Kaufman podcast, Ren. Could have been one of the other ones out there. But they were talking about the possibility that when LaVonte's contract comes up, which I think is not this coming year, but in the next year, he has a contract coming up soon, that we could wind up seeing LaVonte wind up being with another team because the Bucs are not going to want to pay the price that LaVonte is going to command when they have, all these other, Bucs don't have an unlimited salary cap, so it's got to get cut somewhere. So that was the speculation of that, and that part of bringing in Beckwith was preparing a replacement for LaVonte should that day ever arrive.
Yeah, I think we even talked a little bit about it, especially once we saw him play. When he got that extended playing time early on in the year when LaVonte went down for a while, but that's still a long ways away. LaVonte is not a free agent until 2021.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow. So yeah, no, that seems
Yeah. But I mean, next year will be Beckwith's second year.
So Beckwith will have to get to his
beginning
second
of his
contract.
5th year, he could slide into that role.
Yeah. So Beckwith has to get to basically his second contract, or right at his second contract, before this even becomes an issue.
Yeah, and they get him on the cheap because he's just been playing Sam the whole time.
Right. So, but anyway, I mean, that said, Beckwith being groomed as another LaVonte, not a bad thing.
No, and this is something that I think Jason Licht does really well, is always looking into the future. You can't replace everybody all the time. Last year he rolled the dice on Vincent Jackson, Snake Eyes, got burnt, but filled a lot of spots.
Sure.
Particularly cornerback, drafted one, got Brent Grimes. This year he rolled the dice on defensive ends, filled a whole bunch of other spots. Snake Eyes got bit again. But if you start to look at player development to when somebody might get too expensive, there seems to be a guy that they got back there and they're already grooming him. You could talk about O.J. Howard, Anthony Auclair. You can talk about Caleb Beninock and Laird Wester on the offensive line. The defensive line, not so much. They've been trying to. They got Noah Spence, but
we'll try again next year with him.
Yeah, but he sort of got thrust into like, hey, your time's now, buddy.
Right.
And tried to fill the DT spots with signing vets such as Robert Ayers and Chris Baker. I expect the Bucs to go heavy on defensive line during this offseason. Safety, nickel corner. There'd always seem, you got Jude and JV and Ella. There always seems to be somebody in the pipeline. I'm sure a lot of teams are like this, but I think the guys that we have in the pipeline at certain spots are really talented. Maybe with defensive tackle, you can look back to Stevie Tukolivatu.
Right.
He's going to be on the roster come training camp.
Right.
So there's, I really like what Jason Licht does. And so it's no surprise that he's not looking to next year. He's looking like 4 or 5 years ahead at all times.
Right. I like it. I like Jason Licht. I think he should be re-signed. I don't buy into speculation that he won't be re-signed in this offseason. That one to me is a no-brainer. Anyway, moving on. Clinton McDonald named Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So congratulations to him. I know Vincent Jackson had that award nomination. He carried that for the last bunch of years for the Bucs.
Yeah.
So with him obviously no longer with the team, it fell to Clinton McDonald. So congratulations to Clinton, and we hope you win. Let's see here. I got just two more. Speaking of defensive linemen, Gerald McCoy had a fun little press conference earlier this week, also involving, I believe it was Rick Stroud, who, people were asking him questions, the same kind of questions they typically ask him this time of year, with this kind of record.
And I'd like to say, I kind of went on a little tirade about, the beat writers, and not all of them, but, you need to sort of man up and be quiet and quit being a little baby. But I will say that the best person who does what I said, you got to take away the outs. The best person who does that is Rick Stroud. His questions go on for 15, 20 seconds because he does it. It's very unassuming. He asks, it's a little aggressive, then he backs off, and then his tone starts to go down, and then by the end he's all like, and so he's very good at that. So I just wanted to say that since you brought him up again.
Alrighty. I don't exactly know what question Rick Stroud was asking, but Gerald just kind of stopped and he said, all right, guys, hey, time out. Listen, a lot of negativity flowing around this locker room, so I'm not going to answer any more negative questions. Everything I'm going to answer is going to be positive, so let's just keep the questions there. What'd you think of that? Kind of telling the guys, look, I'm not answering those kinds of questions anymore. Keep it on this side over here.
That's fine. But if you're going to tweet about something as in these are the questions you're going to get, that's the guy you need to tweet at. Last the league in sacks, last the league in third down. You're playing good, well, probably Pro Bowl caliber, but the defensive line is not, and the defense is not, and you're the captain of the defense. You're the guy. You're the guy everybody talks about. You're the team that always, you're the game wrecker when the other team puts on tape every week. So it's on your shoulders. So if you don't want to talk about negativity, okay, I get it. You're trying to be a leader, and you're trying to keep everyone upbeat because the season hasn't gone the way. And he wasn't mad, and so I give him credit. It's not like he got mad about it. He was just saying that I'm not going to answer him. But you're 4-8. Those are the questions you're going to get asked. Why is there no pass rush? What's going on? So once again, I understand why he did it. I don't mind that he did it because he didn't get angry. Now, if he got angry and be like, I'm tired of these negative questions, well, then win more ball games and there won't be as many negative questions. So
Right.
That's sort of why I fall down on that. Yeah, sure, don't answer them. I get it, what you're doing, but that's the time for it. These are the questions you're going to be asked because, you're not winning enough football games.
I get it. I get exactly what you're saying there. I kind of like it. I kind of like what he's doing there.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. You, as a student of leadership and culture,
Yeah.
how do you fall down on that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of it you have to take in context. A lot of it is, hey, listen, we've been doing this for the last 14 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So we've answered all, I mean, a little bit of listen, we've answered all the questions that you're going to ask about this. We're at the spot where we're just kind of retilling old ground. So I'm not going to go there anymore. So that's not a bad thing. I'm very for that, especially where they do that interview in the locker room with other people around. And not and that's not to say, well, if they went to another room somewhere and it was more private, because they're going to put this out on video. They're going to put this out on social media and on the website. So
Right,
everybody
but
can
not
go see it.
everybody reads everything.
Exactly. But to sit back and say, look, we're not focusing on that right now. At least as far as the media goes, I mean, they need to be handling it internally. The other side of that is, especially as a leader, you can't ignore reality. One of the jobs of a leader is to define reality. And, so you can't just ignore it and go, I'm only going to send out positive vibes into the atmosphere. You can't do that. You actually have to, you have to acknowledge it. You have to define it for what it is and game plan around it. That's all a part of the job. So, as far as the role of what he did there, I like it. I don't have a problem with it. I definitely found it very interesting, that he went there. And, I from what I heard from other people, and I forget who said this, he was even telling other people in the locker room, his other teammates who were doing interviews, of, hey man, stay positive, stay up, stay positive,
Right.
don't answer this, don't answer those kinds of questions. He's trying to be, I talk about leadership. It requires being intentional. He's intentionally trying to cultivate something in their locker room. And that I like. Whether that's the right way to do it or not, I don't know. But the fact that he's being intentional about something, I like that a lot, especially as a student of leadership.
Do you think he had to wait till reporters get there before he told everybody that?
It occurs to me, I don't think he thought of it until he was in the moment.
Until someone asked him a negative question.
And I think he might have had some thoughts about that he's probably had thoughts of that for weeks now. And it was in the moment that he was being asked this question, and he just finally made his decision and said, nope, I'm not going to do it. And it ends right now. That's an assumption, a complete and total assumption, but that's
so it's the other way. The other way would be that he waited reporters to get there to, sort of showboat or grandstand a little bit.
Yeah.
Showing them, how I'm trying to be a leader. Come on, guys, stay positive.
Yeah.
What is it? Wednesday.
Uh-huh.
Everybody was in the building Monday.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
But it's speculation either way. But I'm not leaning that way at all. It just sort of popped into my head when you started talking about after he said that, and sort of the reporters broke up. That it was reported that he sort of said out loud and talking to the rest of the team like, "Come on, guys, stay positive in your interviews." Like so
right. I mean, it again, and this is total speculation, and I would not have had a problem at all if, they had conversations about it as a team. Of listen, guys, let's stay positive in our approach to the media guys when they come in. Let's do this, let's do that, and then he took that opportunity to. There is something about leaders going first to publicly say, "Hey, listen, I'm not going to do this anymore." And by the way, when Gerald said it, he was very respectful.
yes,
he handled it very professionally. He said to Riggs, like, "Look, I understand you have a job to do, but I do as well, and this is what I'm trying to do here. So, this is just kind of the rule that I'm going to set up for me from now on, or at least for this week, for the rest of today. I don't know how long that's going to carry over for him."
It was for the season, he said.
Awesome. And then him trying to bring other people along and get them to do it if they see him doing it. I don't know that it's a showboating thing, although I could see why somebody might think that. But yeah, I would not have had a problem if he had mentioned something to people beforehand and then said, "Now I'm going to put it out there in public with these guys and let them know." That I wouldn't have had a problem with that.
Yeah.
But I doubt that's what happened. Again, my whole speculation.
Me too.
Yeah, my whole speculation is that it was something that was very spur of the moment. So, outside of that, the only thing I have left in terms of headlines, and I don't even have a specific headline or report that I can point to for this, I've just heard it from multiple sources, is that there are more reports about there being good vibes in the locker room this week. This is not a team that has quit. This is not a team that's looking to limp across the finish line for the next 4 weeks. They're hungry. They've got something to prove, and they're not just going out to play spoiler. They're really looking. They're not being jerks about it. Like, I hate the whole idea of a team playing spoiler for the rest of the league. Like, we're not getting in, so we're going to screw everybody else that we can. That's just called being a jerk. It is, at least as far as I'm concerned.
No.
I think it is to sit there and say, no, listen,
if the last game of the year, which is what,
Saints, yeah,
Saints, if you beat the Saints and they don't go to the playoffs, you don't think they want that a little more? Like, if that game rides on the Saints going to the playoffs, you don't think the Bucs want that a little more?
See, you're going to force me to say something that's going to get me in trouble with our fan base out there, Ren, with our fellow fans. The way my loyalties lie is with the Buccaneers first, and then the NFC South second. So I get rivalries. I'm all for rivalries, but
okay, what if it's between, if the Saints win, they go; if they lose, the Falcons go?
Then I don't care. Because I'm 50-50 on it at that point. Like, they're both NFC South teams. An NFC South team is going to be in, or a second NFC South team is going to be in. So cool, I'm good with that. But I would much rather than sit there and say, "Oh, we're going to go out here and win and screw you over from doing that." I'm saying, no, we're going to go out here because we have something to prove. We're going to go out here because we actually are looking to do something for ourselves here. Not just to screw you and piss you off, but because we have something going on over here. I like that. And that seems to be, at least according to some of the reports we've heard, that is the attitude and the mentality of this locker room right now. This is not a locker room that's given up. In fact, what we've heard from so many people is, I was around during that year with Raheem Morris. This does not feel like that at all. This is not a team that's given up. So to me, that's good news. I think that actually bodes well for Coach Koetter, the fact that the team hasn't given up on him. If people say, "Oh, the team's given up," you're wrong. If the reports from people who are there on the ground are to be believed, you're wrong. So,
Yeah, I think this whole thing, that whole narrative just sort of got started because, there was a guy out there and, talking about how Koetter lost the locker room, and it's obvious, and you have to be a blind man not to see it. And so people started asking the question.
right.
And since that, pretty much that day, it's always been a no. No.
Uh-huh.
Everyone's like, no. Why even? It's almost like, why even asking that question?
Right.
So someone was pushing a narrative, and it ended up not being true. And I think finally it could be put to bed. It took a couple weeks to put it to bed. Everyone had to sort of ask their go-to person about it. Because if one person says it's blue and I say it's green, I'm going to go to somebody that needs to tell me. I'm going to look for somebody to tell me it's green, right?
Uh-huh.
So everybody in sort of this Bucs media, fringe media, has had to gone to somebody to tell them that it's green. And it took like 3 weeks for everybody to find somebody to be like, nope, it's green. That makes
There you
sense?
go. It does. It does. Is the dress blue or gold? So
Yeah. Well, what was it for you?
I forget which way it was, but I saw it the way that it wasn't in reality.
What was it in reality?
I
guess
forget.
that,
I think it was gold, and the
I
way
don't know
that
what it was
most
in
people
reality.
saw is that it was blue.
I saw it blue and black.
Or blue and black. Yeah, I don't know. It's something like
It was
that.
either blue and black or gold and black.
Yeah, something like that. It's whichever one it was in reality. I saw it as the opposite. But I could kind of twist it and
But how
sort
was
of
it?
see it.
But how can you tell it was that color in reality? How about the person
because
that
they
saw
had
it
the
and
they
made
had
it the
the
first time?
they had the actual dress because the photo was it was a lighting trick of the camera.
Was it? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. It was like just some weird lighting trick that plays with color rods in your eye, like in regular light under regular circumstances. And it very clearly this is the dress. It was I think gold. I think was the actual color of the dress.
I think about stuff like that a lot. Like, who was the first person that made that, and then just everybody else just went with it? Like the color blue. Like, we're calling that blue. The sky's blue.
Right.
Okay. Like, you could call it anything.
It's true.
Yeah. I mean, it's like somebody had to make up the word at one point.
Yeah. I always think about, this is totally not Bucs related at all. I always think about who are those people that went out and ate mushrooms? To find out who the poisonous one was, which one the poisonous one is.
Yeah. How do you know that those berries make you sick and kill you? Like,
right.
Yeah. Like, I think about that all the time, about how people found out that things are edible and not edible.
Exactly.
Like really, like, think about milking a cow. Just think about it.
Uh-huh.
It's like,
well, let's see. Our baby's drinking mama's milk. Maybe we could drink the animal's milk.
Yeah, but I mean,
let's pasteurize
just because
it
it's
first.
the same color doesn't mean it's the same thing.
Right.
It's just, who was the first person to kill a pig and find out bacon's delicious?
That person was a genius. I'm going to go with.
But who would do that? Who would eat that?
Leonardo da Vinci. I don't know. Let's move on to the injury report here, Ren, as we round out our show here.
Right.
Let's see here. Looking at the Detroit Lions, they have one person who is out with an ankle injury, Rick Wagner. He's a tackle. I don't know if he's a backup or a starter. Do you know anything about him?
You know what? I'm sorry, listeners. I forgot to look. Usually that's sort of my little thing there. But what I will say is that the Lions have had like 7 different starting offensive lines, and they're kind of like us, except they don't pass protect as well.
Uh-huh.
Normally us, not Green Bay us. Normally us. They really don't run the ball that well, and they don't really pass protect that well. Their line's been beat up, and they've been flipping guys all the time. And with this guy out, that Brent just said, I think it's going to make it a new, different lineup that they're going to be putting out there Sunday. So, as a whole, the Lions' offensive line is impressive.
Yeah, and by the way, they have 4 other offensive linemen on the injury report. The other 4 are listed all as questionable for the game. Only not even one was at full participation. So Yeah, they were all limited this whole week. The only other real standout to me from the Lions, and again, I don't follow other teams, so unless you're a superstar name, and if you don't play for the Bucs, I don't know you, or you played with the Buccaneers back then. But Matthew Stafford, he's got a hand injury. I think we all heard about that last week. He is questionable for the game. Do you have any insight, Ren, if he's actually expected to play, or if that really is a?
He's going to go.
You think he's going to go?
Oh, he's going to go for sure. I mean, basically, he was going down, got sacked or hit after he threw it or something, and a defensive lineman stepped on his hand. He had X-rays Sunday of the game, and then he had the X-rays the next day. They were both negative. He was practicing. He was throwing the ball, so he's going to play. He's sort of been a tough guy. He's battled through a lot. So
there you go.
But good news is, last time he had a hand injury, but I think it was the thumb. For a couple of games, he threw a lot of picks. But the thumb's a much more different than the hand. If the hand's hurt and he can't squeeze the ball, then he just can't throw. But the thumb, it's more of a stabilization than actually like driving the ball down the field.
Sure.
But you just can't squeeze it quite as hard or be as stable in the hand. So as it comes out, it'll float or flutter a little more than normal. And maybe that was the problem. I think it was last year it happened to him, or maybe 2 years ago. Anyway, the point being is the last time Matt Stafford had a hand injury, he threw picks. So here's hoping.
There you go. Hey, listen.
But he's playing.
Justin Evans, this is your chance to take the lead, buddy.
He is the lead.
In the rookie, he's tied for the lead, isn't he?
The team or the league?
No, for the league.
Oh, I don't know.
For the league. He's tied with two other rookies. They each have 3 interceptions for the lead. This is his chance to take the lead. He is in the lead with the team. That is true. We talked about that on our last episode. All right. Moving over to the Buccaneers injury report. We have 4 people who will be out for this game. Vernon Hargreaves is still out with a hamstring injury. That thing, it certainly sounds like it's lingering. Clinton McDonald is out with his back again. Josh Robinson is out with a hamstring injury again. And TJ Ward is out with a concussion. None of them participated all week long. So they will be out. Ryan Russell is questionable. Did not participate on Wednesday, was limited on Thursday, but fully participated today. So he's going to go as defensive end, Ryan Russell. And then a couple other people who will be playing. They're not even listed as questionable. They're actually just falling off the injury report. But Robert Ayers with a concussion from, I guess, last week?
Couple weeks ago,
yeah. Joe Hawley is back to full participation after his illness. Doug Martin, of course, we've talked about him a little bit already, is back off concussion protocol. And Jameis Winston is falling off the injury report with an ankle injury, which I believe we said that would happen, after the game. It wouldn't be his shoulder, it'd be his ankle in this coming one. He did look like he was hobbling around, but, let's face it, Jameis doesn't run very pretty anyway. So
yeah, it looks like he always has an ankle injury.
Yeah, so but those guys are all full goes. So any thoughts on injury report, Ren, or do you want to go ahead and get to our predictive inactives for the game?
It's nice to see Robert Ayers back after missing a couple games with a concussion.
Yeah.
That was cool. That was really about it. Nothing else was really a surprise at all. Joe Hawley, that's going to switch up the offensive line.
Yep.
Where Hawley will get to play center and Evan Smith will be guard, and they'll kick Pamphile out to right tackle.
We'll see. I'm not as certain.
It's what's going to happen.
I'm not as certain on that as you are. I hope that's what happens.
They said last week that's how they practiced all week before Hawley got sick.
Okay, fair enough. I hope that's what they do. No, that's I did not hear that, but I trust you when you say that. They just, we've said it before. They've said all year long that Pamphile is the number 1 backup tackle, but when they've needed a backup tackle, Pamphile's not been the guy who's shot out there. So I hope you're right. Now, with that, why don't we get over to our predictive inactives? We are looking for 7 people that will be inactive. We know 4 of them: Hargreaves, McDonald, Robinson, and Ward. That leaves us with 3 people. Ren, who you got?
Welcome back to home, Ryan Griffin, to your spot on the inactive list. I'm also going with Lidke.
Okay.
Because I'll have Beninock and Wester. They only carry 7.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm going with Alan Cross.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why. Because, Eau Claire was inactive until they put Luke Stocker inactive the last 2 weeks he was here. They let him go, brought up Alan Cross. Last week, everybody on the injury report or on the inactive list was injured, so it had to be those 7 guys.
Right.
And now with more people healthy, I think Alan Cross is going to be inactive.
If there was an open spot on the inactive list, do you think Cross would have had it last week?
That's what I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I think that's probably that probably seems pretty accurate as far as Cross goes. Certainly there are those 4. I also had Michael Liedtke in there. Alan Cross. I had Cross / Eau Claire. I think it could be either one, but probably more likely Cross if I had to lean one way or the other. And then for my number 7, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier of this is a time when they're looking to, possibly see what their younger guys have. So I think it might be Ryan Fitzpatrick. I'm going to put Ryan Fitzpatrick down as our last inactive, and Ryan Griffin will be the active backup.
I would not be shocked.
I would not be shocked, but if I'm a betting man, Ren, I'm going to go with you, and I'm going to say that Griffin is the inactive one if I had to put money on it. However, and I probably could, but to me, there's just enough there that I think it's possible that we could see Fitzpatrick become inactive this week.
Wow, I wonder if you can bet on inactives.
I'm sure somebody out there. I'm sure if you approached some bookie out there somewhere and said, "I want to bet you this," they probably would put you a line on it somehow.
Yeah, you have to put down $1,000 to win 10. Okay, no thanks.
Right. So, all right. Well, Ren, that is going to do it for us with Buck in the news for December the 9th. That's all the transactions, the headlines, and everything as well. Oh, wait, one headline we didn't actually talk about, Ren, at all. This is kind of a homecoming of sorts. Akeem Spence is coming back.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. I can't believe we forgot to talk about this. He said he's a little hungry. He's a little thirsty. Some news has come to light a little bit, I think, about how he might have gotten released from the Buccaneers. And if anything, I think it makes me realize that, it's possible they actually did the right thing, in letting him go. But what are your thoughts on some of Akeem's comments, as he's heading back to Ray J this week?
Who cares? I mean, they didn't want him. They didn't re-sign him. So he went to Detroit, and now he gets to play the Buccaneers, so he's sort of chirped up. I did see the Lions made him a captain this week.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, which I find interesting. But the Lions are almost a mirror of the Buccaneers. I told you about, the offensive lines. We are better in pass protection generally. But the Lions can't get any pass rush either. And, and Akeem Spence isn't doing really much of anything. Right.
Yeah, he's not having a stellar year.
No, and he didn't have a stellar year here. He never has a stellar year. That's why he's not with us anymore.
Right.
But, this is going to be a bloodbath and all this other crap he's talking about. Who cares? Just whatever. He's going to be a non-factor, more than likely. He's going to have 2 sacks and force a turnover for me to consider that, with all the talk he's doing, it actually paid off. I don't think he's going to get a sack at all.
No. You don't often see a nose tackle get a sack anyway. But even still, I don't think. The things that you hear about is, I still don't really know what the Bucs did or didn't do. Did we just flat out say, no, we don't want you and we let you go? Or did they make him an offer and maybe it was way lower than what he thought he should be paid? Or, where exactly were they? I think it was certainly a surprise to him. He could have felt betrayed one way or the other. But to come back and say it's going to be a bloodbath, no. Unless he's really, really hurting over this whole thing, which I can't see how he would be. He might be. I don't know. But yeah, to say it's going to be a bloodbath, that's a little over exaggerative, I think. So
Yeah, exactly. For the type of player that he was for us and is this year. And you've heard it a zillion times. NFL players go, I understand it's a business. Apparently he doesn't. He took it like extremely personal.
Right.
Hey, buddy, it's not like you racked up 8 sacks and you're an all pro. It's just you're extremely expendable, and they decided to go a different direction. You got a job. Hey, be happy. You're still playing. Like, I understand what this hate is towards the Buccaneers.
Right. I'm with you. All right, man. Well, with that, that is going to wrap up this show, Ren. For any of you guys who would like to contact us about anything that we have talked about today, please feel free. You can do that to thepewtercast@gmail.com, or find us on Twitter @thepewtercast, or on facebook.com/pewtercast. We do respond to all forms of feedback. Also, please make sure that you join us for our new week of podcasts coming up here on Sunday night. We will be at our Instant Cast. That is a live broadcast. We'll be on mixler.com/thepewtercast. You can join us there. This is a home game, which means the show starts at 10 o'clock. So mark your calendars. It's not a 9 o'clock start. It is a 10 o'clock start. So you guys check that out. You can call in, talk to us about the game, share your feelings, thoughts. Are we going to be celebrating, or are we going to be lamenting? Well, we'll find out tomorrow. Tomorrow. So with that, Ren, where can the good people out there find you if they want to get in touch with you about anything we've talked about today?
Best way is find me on Twitter @RenDax, REN_DAXT. I'm always down to talk Buccaneers football.
And if you want to get a hold of me personally, you can find me @Brent Allen Live on Facebook and Twitter and all the social media stuff out there. I would love to discuss that, or just hit us up at the show, as we said, @thepewtercast across all the platforms. Well, guys, that's going to do it for us for tonight. So until Sunday night, until the Instant Cast, we got a game to watch. So with that, we'll say, go Bucs.
ABC banana.
That's what you're coming up with?
Plantain = MC². Yeah, sorry.